My husband drugged me every night, and I never suspected it until the night I pretended to swallow the pills and stayed awake. At 2 in the morning, I watched him slip out of our bedroom like a shadow. I followed him downstairs and saw something that froze my heart. My name is Emily. I am 34, and I thought I married the safest man in the world. Daniel was calm, gentle, and always worried about my health. Or at least that is what I believed. For months, I had been feeling exhausted. Every night, he would bring me a glass of warm milk with a small pill, saying, "Babe, you need proper sleep. This will help your anxiety." And I trusted him. Why wouldn't I trust the man who held my hand through every hard moment? But slowly I noticed things. I would fall asleep unnaturally fast. I would wake up feeling heavy, disconnected, like my mind was wrapped in fog. And worst of all, I could not remember full nights. Hours disappeared. One evening, while my head was pounding, I said, "Daniel, I want to stop the pills. They make me feel weird." He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Sweetheart, trust me. You need rest. Just a few more days." Something inside me tightened. A quiet fear I tried to ignore. That same night, I texted my sister. "I think something is wrong with me. Or maybe with Daniel." But before I could continue, I felt my phone slip from my hand as the drug pulled me under again. The next morning she called and asked, "What is happening, Em? You sound off." I wanted to answer, but Daniel stood right beside me, listening.
"Zoe litt. Ivy fine."
Just tired. But I was not fine. And I was done ignoring the fear in my gut. 3 nights later, I made a decision. When Daniel handed me the pill, I hid it under my tongue. The milk tasted sweeter than usual, almost too sweet. He watched me swallow. I forced a smile and whispered, "Thank you. I already feel sleepy." He kissed my forehead and waited until my eyes closed. I kept my breath slow and steady. My heart pounded so loudly, I was sure he would hear it. Minutes passed, maybe an hour, and then the mattress moved. Daniel sat up, quietly, carefully. I heard the soft creak of the floor as he stood. Then he slipped out of the room. I waited 10 seconds. Then I got up silently. For the first time in weeks, my mind was clear and alert. Cold air from the hallway brushed my skin as I followed him. He walked downstairs, but instead of going to the kitchen or the bathroom, he turned toward the basement. A place he always told me not to enter because the stairs were loose and dangerous. I watched from behind the wall as he unlocked the basement door. He carried a small bag in one hand. Inside it, something clinked lightly. He went down. I waited until I heard his footsteps settle. Then I slowly crept closer. The basement door was cracked open just enough for me to see. At first, I only saw his silhouette. Then the dim yellow light revealed everything. Daniel was kneeling in front of a woman tied to a chair, her eyes swollen, her wrists bruised, a strip of tape covering her mouth. My breath caught. I clapped my hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. Daniel spoke to her with a softness that sickened me. "You should have stayed quiet. You should never have tried to report me." The woman shook her head violently, tears streaming down her face. Daniel lifted her chin and whispered, "Hush. Emily is almost fully under my control. After tonight, no one will be able to stop anything." My blood turned to ice. I stepped back, but the floor gave a tiny creak. Daniel's head snapped up. "Who's there?" he shouted. I ran. His footsteps thundered behind me as I bolted up the stairs. "Emily, stop," he yelled, his voice breaking into something animalistic. I reached the living room, but he caught my wrist. His grip was tight, trembling with rage and desperation. "You weren't supposed to see that," he hissed. "This was all for us. For our future." "For our future?" I screamed. "You drugged me. You kidnapped someone. How is that for us?" He dragged me backward, his breath hot on my neck. "You were slipping away from me. You stopped listening. I had to make you depend on me." I twisted, kicked, and freed myself only long enough to grab the nearest object, a ceramic vase. I swung it with all my strength. It shattered across his jaw. He stumbled, blood blooming across his cheek. Emily, he growled, no tenderness left in his voice. Before he could rise, a faint sound cut through the air. A phone ringing. Not mine. Not his. It was coming from the basement. Daniel's eyes widened. No, no, no. She wasn't supposed to have her phone. He lunged toward the stairs, panicking. His attention flickered just long enough for me to sprint toward the front door. I grabbed the handle, but it wouldn't turn.
Locked.
Deadbolt from the inside. With a key. He had been locking me in every night. Daniel charged again, but I ducked, ran toward the kitchen, and grabbed a knife from the counter. He froze at the sight of it. You don't even know how to use that, he said, laughter shaking his voice. Try me, I whispered. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. We circled each other, the room thick with tension. Then, a loud crash came from the basement. The Tide woman was trying to escape. Daniel snapped. Enough. He grabbed the nearest drawer, yanked it open, and pulled out duct tape and rope, as if he had placed them there for this exact moment. He rushed at me. I swung the knife. It grazed his arm, leaving a long red line. He howled, tackled me, and pinned my wrist to the floor. The knife slid across the tiles. His face hovered inches above mine, twisted with fury. You're not leaving me, Emily. You're mine. My vision blurred, not from drugs, from panic. Then, a thunderous bang shook the house. Someone kicked the front door open. Police stormed in, guns raised. Step away from her. Daniel jerked back. His eyes darted toward the basement. The woman must have found a way to call again. He tried to run, but two officers tackled him so hard the floor rattled. They forced his arms behind his back and snapped the cuffs on. I lay on the floor, trembling, watching the man I thought I loved become a stranger in seconds. He didn't call my name lovingly.
He didn't beg.
He didn't cry. He stared at me with pure hatred. You ruined everything, he said, voice hollow. You were supposed to need me. Days passed in a blur of police statements, interviews, and sleepless nights. But the shock came during one meeting with the detectives. They had searched the basement, every drawer, every old box, every hidden cabinet. And they found more than I expected. Not just notes, not just plans, but a journal. A journal Daniel had written for months. Inside were pages detailing the exact dosages he gave me. Sketches of the house with routes to isolate me. A list titled, Steps to Remove Emily's Independence. My hands shook as I flipped through it, but the final entries were different. Angry, rushed handwriting. A name appeared repeatedly. Lydia. Not Claire. Not a lover. Lydia, the woman in the basement. She wasn't a random victim. She had been Daniel's former coworker, the first person who suspected he was stealing medication from their clinic. She tried to report him, and Daniel made sure she disappeared before she could. He hadn't just been planning to isolate me. He had been deleting people who stood in his way. And I was next. When I asked the detective what would have happened if I hadn't pretended to swallow the pill, his answer chilled me. Based on his notes, he was preparing to make you appear mentally unstable. Enough to sign away financial control. He wanted my inheritance. He wanted control. He wanted silence. But he never expected me to wake up. Weeks later, during the trial, Daniel refused to look at me. His face stayed blank, cold, unreachable. Lydia testified with a trembling voice. My sister squeezed my hand. I felt every emotion at once: grief, betrayal, rage, and a strange, growing courage. Daniel was sentenced to 35 years in prison. As he was escorted away, he turned his head just enough for me to hear one last whisper. You were supposed to sleep. I stepped outside the courthouse. The sun warmed my face. For the first time in months, I felt awake.
Alive. Free.
I looked up at the sky and whispered. He drugged me to control my life. But staying awake saved it. And now, it's mine again.